Hello, my name's Matt Wingett. I'm a local writer and I've been asked to give a few thoughts on who I'm going to be voting for in the upcoming election. I'm going to talk on a national level because I'm not really very interested in the idiots that we've got locally, but I'll certainly give the reasons why I'm going to be voting the way that I can. I should say, to start off with, that I'm the son of a Royal Naval officer, and so I would normally have Tory leanings, but there are some very, very strong reasons why I cannot vote for this shower of liars. I think that probably sets the tone as to what I think about things. I'm going to deal with it in three parts. I'm going to look at the past, I'm going to look at what's going on now, and I'm going to look at what I think is going to happen in the future, or what I would like to happen in the future. So, starting off with the past, we've all been told that Gordon Brown caused the credit crunch. This is one of the reasons that I have real issue with this government at the moment. Both the Tories and the Lib Dems have continued to spout this lie. Let's be absolutely clear. The credit crunch happened because the banks gambled away the savings of the people of this country in a form of traded option called derivatives. And what happened with that is that they gambled everything and they lost. So what then had to happen was the government needed to step in order to save the banking system and to save the savings in people's accounts. What they actually had to do was to replace the savings that you and me had with foreign debt. That's actually the level of banking, the level of your savings account is actually foreign debt, or was when that was done. So that's the kind of starting point of it. Now, a lot of people say, oh yes, but those were the reforms that Gordon Brown brought in. Yeah, Gordon Brown was handed a pretty dodgy card, really, or a pretty dodgy hand by the Thatcherite reforms that had gone before. If he tried to take back all the Thatcherite reforms, he would have been turned on by Murdoch, who was necessary for Labour to get into power. And the Thatcherite reforms happened in 1986 with the Big Bang, and that was the start of the deregulation of the banks. It goes back to Thatcher, for whom I used to have quite a lot of respect and do not anymore. So that's part of the past dealt with. If you are told that Gordon Brown started or caused the credit crunch, it is a lie. It is the Tories' friends, the bankers, who caused the credit crunch. Just that simple. So just remember that. Now, the second part of this is that there are ways to deal with the huge debt that we were in. Most economists believe that you stimulate the economy by further debt, by further borrowing, just enough to enable you to wake the industry back up again, wake up businesses, get things moving. That's what happened in the USA, and for the last 5 out of the last 7 years, the USA has indeed been leading the world in the recovery, and at the same time has managed to bring in a public health system. So there's been quite a lot of public expenditure at the same time as kind of a managed austerity procedure over there. Why didn't the UK government do that? Well, the reason is that ideologically the UK government wanted to hand as much as they could over to private business. And that's what's been going on. We've seen the running down of councils, we've seen the running down of all sorts of public services and the selling off of those public services to private businesses, including sections of the NHS, which is an absolute disgrace. It just should not have been allowed and should not have been let happen. And the reason that they've been able to do it is they've been hiding under the mantle of austerity, that it's all to do with the credit crunch. It's not. Look at America. America managed that recovery for the last 7 years far more efficiently than us, and it's only in the last 6 months or so that Britain has moved ahead in percentage terms in growth. We have been stalled for 5 years, and that brings me to another point. Public sector debt is absolutely massive. If you look at the figures, the real figures of public sector debt under the Tory governments this last 5 years, they have gone up massively. So if we're being told that it hasn't, that's a lie. It drives me crazy, that kind of lying. So then we need to look at the future. What does the future offer us under the Tories? More of the same, more cutting of the public sector in order to actually subsidise the private sector. Now, me, coming from the 1980s, that's when I sort of got my political awareness fully, I've always thought that the Tories were opposed to subsidising things. I thought that's what they didn't want to do. They wanted to make things stand on their own 2 feet. But we have the obscene thing going on at the moment, where what we have is we have councils being cut back, core functions that they should be delivering, helping the poor, the disadvantaged, being cut back so that people who caused the credit crunch, the bankers, can stay in their jobs, so that businesses can then come in to the councils and win contracts because the council can no longer afford to pay to do them for themselves. All of that is just a complete and utter inversion of what the role of government is, or at least should be. The government should support and allow the private sector to thrive, and that money should then come from the private sector to support the public sector and to help the most disadvantaged. It's just fairness. It's about fairness, and that has not gone on. What is going on instead is, as I've said, these big businesses are coming in and they are buying contracts, and those contracts are draining money, direct public money, into private business. It's wrong. We are subsidising private business, and there is going to be more and more and more of it under the Tory government if it were to get in again. And that is the reason why, and let's look at who these businesses are. They're all city, big city businesses. It's going to be the share dealers that are dealing with all this stuff. It's all Tory Eton-esque friends. And what I do not see in the Tory manifesto is hope for the individual. We are all being ground under the heel of large corporations. It is disgusting to feel that the individual is so overlooked by this government because all they do is favour big businesses and corporations. It's just wrong. If you think back to the Thatcherite times in the 80s, the whole ideal was that this woman, who was the daughter of a grocery store owner in Grantham, her ideal was that individuals could set up as entrepreneurs and get out there and do stuff. That is not what is going on with this government. This government at the moment, and in the future I know it will do more of the same, is not interested in the individual entrepreneur. What it is interested in is in making sure that its big friends in big business, that it kowtows to, have all of the big cherries to pluck, and it is disgusting. So, the alternatives for me are the Lib Dems, which, let's face it, are just a complete waste of time. They betrayed the left at the last election. They completely betrayed everything that we thought that they stood for. There was a time during Tony Blair's period in power, and I say that name with absolute disgust, because Tony Blair was essentially Tory boy, wasn't he? He was just a right-winger with a slight shade of pink around his ears. I mean, what a disgusting creature that man was, and still is. Why on earth the Labour Party wheeled him out to vote for, to try and persuade people to vote Labour is just, beyond me. But, that all said, the Labour Party, is the only game in town that is seriously at least going to partially alleviate the austerity plans that are going on at the moment. And for that reason, despite having once upon a time been a Thatcherite, I am most certainly not anymore after seeing the descendant of King William IV, David Cameron, bossing people around and telling the poor that they can subsidise the rich. That's just wrong. That is just wrong. And so no, it's not going to happen. And there's my rant over, basically. I'm going to vote Labour because the Lib Dems are a waste of time, and at least there's the slightest opportunity of some form of equity and fairness coming back if we have at least a mildly left-wing government in, rather than this bunch of mindless, redneck, libertarian, anarchist fools that we have in at the moment. What a bunch of clowns. There we go. Thanks very much. Take care now. Bye-bye.